Hi, Smirconishers, and welcome back to smirconish.com. This is the Editor's Report, and I'm your editor, Gilly Remen. Welcome back to another very, very busy week in politics. As you guys know, the impeachment trials in the Senate have been going in full swing, and we have been covering everything on SiriusXM POTUS. But to kind of break from the usual, let's take a look at the highlights from our critical thinking section, where contributors from around the country and actually around the world send us their opinion columns about a lot of different subjects. It's all featured on smirconish.com. So let's get right to it. James Icahn wrote a really interesting piece called Netanyahu's Game of Survival, where he discusses the new quote-unquote peace plan between Trump and Netanyahu, its flaws, and how Netanyahu is also being indicted in Israel for serious corruption charges and how that will go down for him. Then we have Timothy Phelan with a potpourri of predictions for the 2020s, where he comically lays out his best predictions for the decade ahead of us, and some of them are interesting and some of them are very out there, so go check it out. Then we have Daniel OHara with Why Gerrymandering is the Biggest Threat to American Democracy, where he discusses the history of gerrymandering and how it is a threat not only to American democracy, but to citizens in every democracy everywhere. Then we have Josh Belfort, who was actually a former intern here for Michael Smirconish, who wrote a piece called A Pediatrician's Thoughts on Physician Burnout. Now, Josh is at the last days of his residency, of his medical residencies, and he talks about how important mental health is, especially for people who practice medicine, and how burnout is very real. Then we have Gerry Milner, who wrote Everybody Wins, Especially Us, and he's basically advocating for environmental policies and economic policies that will reduce the negative effects of climate change, and how that will be better both economically and environmentally for our future. Then we have Charles Wendling with a really interesting piece called Looking at the Big Picture for a Solution on Gun Violence, where he really takes a step back and looks at the underlying causes of gun violence, and it's not the obvious options. Then we have Fred Gustafson with Equality, Equity, and Fair Taxation, where he kind of dives deep into American tax code and kind of criticizes it for its lacking nature. And Tim Weffler, finally, with How Lies Become True, kind of commenting on the political alternative facts, political landscape we live in today, that we unfortunately live in today. And finally, my piece that I wrote from last week called Meghan Markle's Princess Story Represents Progress, where I basically kind of lay out how not just racism, but sexism and classism has impacted Meghan and Harry's decision to not be senior members of the royal family anymore, and how her princess story is really leading the way for girls everywhere and for the world to become more equal, especially in genders, and especially with narratives like those typical Disney princess movie narratives where the prince saves the princess, but how she's really changing that up. So go and check all of those great pieces out at smirconish.com. And of course, if you have anything to write and if you feel passionate about something, please send me an email with your submission at editor@smirconish.com. Again, send an email to editor@smirconish.com. We would love to work with you. Have a great day and see you next time.